Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly reach their dreams, while others stay stuck in the exact same place for years?
It really is the quietest, most confronting question we can ask ourselves.
Yeah.
And tonight, we're going to explore the answer together.
Yeah. I want you to just imagine we're sitting here, across from each other at a really cozy kitchen table.
Late at night.
Exactly. It's late at night, the house is finally perfectly still, and I have a warm mug of tea waiting right here for you.
Just for the next hour or so. You really don't have to be anywhere else.
Right. You don't have to answer to anyone. We are just two friends talking about the real unspoken friction that happens in the background of our lives.
Because the truth is, deep down, none of us really wants to just blend into the gray mass.
No, of course not. Nobody dreams of living a purely mundane life,
Yeah.
Just going through the motions day after day, totally exhausted and numb.
We all want to be happier. We want to be healthier and, more fulfilled.
But somehow, the gap between what we want and where we actually are, it just feels impossibly wide sometimes.
It does. And there is a very real, very hidden pain in that. It's a quiet fatigue, really, of wanting more but feeling completely drained by the effort of just getting by.
It really is an incredibly heavy kind of exhaustion.
Yeah, and what I have observed over years of my practice, working with so many well-meaning, incredibly hardworking people, is that the biggest hurdle is almost never a lack of desire.
Right. We all want a better life.
Exactly. The hurdle is getting stuck in the wishing phase. We wish for things to change, but we feel like we are running on a treadmill.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
You're expending all this energy, sweating, panting, dealing with the daily grind, but the scenery
never actually changes. You stay in the exact same place.
And running in places, it turns out, is the most tiring kind of running there is.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive tonight is to act as a catalyst for a different kind of movement.
We aren't here to offer you some harsh boot camp or yell at you to simply work harder.
No, absolutely not. You already work hard enough. Instead, we're going to explore the hidden, almost invisible secrets of personal growth that most people just completely ignore.
We want to look at how minute daily choices, like waking up just a fraction earlier.
Or claiming a few moments of solitude before the whole world wakes up.
Right. How those tiny things can serve as a literal lifeline.
So, by the end of our conversation, the goal is for you to understand exactly how to pull yourself out of the swamp of stagnation without burning yourself out in the process.
But, before we can map out how to change our lives, we have to look very honestly where we are right now.
We do. We have to understand why it feels so incredibly safe to stay exactly where we are, even when we know deep in our hearts that we aren't truly happy or fulfilled.
We really have to examine the illusion of the comfort zone.
Because if our current situation didn't serve us in some way, if it didn't provide some kind of psychological payoff, we simply wouldn't stay there.
Precisely. The payoff is a feeling of emotional safety. It is a deeply ingrained human instinct to want to do what everyone else is doing.
Right, because when you blend in with the crowd, you're protected.
You are. When you stand out, when you declare that you want more out of life, that you are going back to school or starting a business or even just getting into shape, you suddenly risk being judged.
You risk failing in public.
Exactly. You risk leaving your peers behind. So we all sort of huddle together in the middle. But here is the heartbreaking reality of that choice.
What is it?
Doing what the majority does only gets you the results the majority has. And if we look around and are completely honest with ourselves, most people are entirely exhausted.
It's true. Most people are really unfulfilled.
So when I talk about the gray mass, I never mean it as an insult or a judgment. It is just a description of a tragedy.
It's a state of collective fatigue.
Yes, a state where beautiful, unique individuals abandon their deeply held dreams just to fit in and avoid the friction of standing out.
Wow. Collective fatigue. That phrase, it hits incredibly close to home. Because when we reach that level of bone-deep tiredness, we start negotiating with our own potential, don't we?
We absolutely do. We look in the mirror and we whisper these destructive little justifications.
Yeah, we say things like, well, everyone lives like this. Everyone is tired. This is just what being an adult is.
Or we try to comfort ourselves by saying, my life isn't the worst. I have a roof over my head.
Right. Maybe it's even a little better than my neighbor's life. I should just be grateful and stay put.
And, gratitude is a wonderful, necessary practice, but not when it is weaponized against your own growth.
Oh, that's such a vital distinction.
When we use the phrase, it could be worse, to talk ourselves out of trying for better, those whispers are just the sound of us settling into our own mediocrity. We use the struggles of others as a shield to protect ourselves from the effort of changing.
The way I have always pictured this mindset is like a warm, muddy swamp.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right, like imagine you are just sitting in a swamp. At first, the mud is actually kind of warm, it's thick, it's familiar, and it requires absolutely zero effort to just sit there and sink a little.
And everyone else is sitting in the mud too, so you feel a sense of belonging.
Exactly. You look around and think, okay, this is just where people live, but it's actually quicksand. It is slowly pulling you under.
The warmth is a complete illusion.
Yeah. And the mud is ensuring that your legs get so heavy and so stuck that you can never actually walk out to see the beautiful, expansive forest just beyond the edge of the water. It guarantees you never go anywhere.
That imagery perfectly captures the mechanics of the comfort zone. It feels like a blanket, but it operates like a cage.
So the most important question then becomes, how do we get out?
Well, the fundamental mistake people make, the reason they usually fail, is thinking they need to suddenly leap out of the swamp, sprint into the forest, and climb the highest tree in a single day.
Oh, right. Like the New Year's resolution trap.
Exactly. They decide they're going to overhaul their diet, start a marathon training plan, and read a book a week, all starting on a Monday.
And the mind just completely rebels against that.
It absolutely rebels. It triggers massive internal panic. Your mind perceives that drastic, sudden change as a threat to your survival.
So it just screams, danger. Go back to the mud where it's safe and predictable.
Yes. Instead, stepping out safely is about gently, almost imperceptibly, stretching your boundaries.
But how do we bypass that threat response? I mean, how do we stretch the boundary without setting off all those internal panic alarms?
You do it by trying unusually small things that carry absolutely no real risk. It is simple, foundational life wisdom. Tomorrow, just take a slightly different walking route to work or to the store.
Just one street over, maybe?
Yes, just one street. Order a completely different type of coffee or food for lunch. Smile and speak one kind sentence to a colleague you normally ignore.
Those seem so trivial, though.
They do seem trivial, but they serve a massive purpose. They bypass the panic response and gently train your mind.
They send a quiet signal to your inner self.
Right. They say, look, we stepped into the unknown, we did something different, and we are perfectly safe. The sky didn't fall.
So you are loosening the grip of the mud, just an inch at a time, proving to yourself that the unfamiliar is not synonymous with danger.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense mechanically. But I do have to ask you about the reality of our daily lives here, because I know there is a friction for anyone listening who is currently carrying a really heavy load.
Of course.
When we are already overwhelmingly tired from daily life, from paying bills, from taking care of our families, from navigating difficult jobs, isn't the comfort zone exactly what we need? I mean, don't we need that warm mud just to rest and survive the week?
I hear the exhaustion in that question, and it is a vital distinction to make. We have to clearly differentiate between true restorative rest and hiding.
Okay, hiding.
Yes, we all desperately need true rest. We need deep sleep. We need quiet moments of reflection. We need proper nourishment and time with people we love. But the comfort zone, the swamp, isn't rest. It is hiding from life out of fear.
What is the mechanical difference between the two, though? Because, from the outside, resting on the couch and hiding on the couch look exactly the same.
They do look the same, but the difference lies in the internal energy exchange. True rest restores your energy so you can go back out and live fully. You wake up feeling replenished.
Right.
Hiding, on the other hand, actively drains your energy. It takes a massive amount of subconscious effort to constantly suppress your dreams, to ignore the voice inside you that wants more, and to continuously manufacture excuses for why you can't move forward.
Oh, wow.
So when you are hiding, you wake up just as tired as when you went to sleep.
That is so true.
When you gradually step out of the swamp, you aren't robbing yourself of rest. You are actually freeing up the immense energy you previously wasted on holding yourself back.
That is a profound distinction. True rest prepares us for life, while hiding prevents us from living. It's the difference between pausing to take a breath and holding your breath until you pass out.
Precisely.
So if the comfort zone is the swamp and hiding is draining us, how do we practically begin to pull ourselves out? We need a surplus of energy to make even small changes. Where do we find it?
The easiest, most universally accessible way to break away from the crowd and find that energy is to change how we begin our day. We have to look at the morning hour.
Ah, mornings.
Yes. There is a quiet magic there that the vast majority of people sleep right through.
I am so glad we are going here. I am talking about the beauty of waking up just a little bit earlier than the rest of the house.
Before the kids are up, before the emails start chiming.
Before the world starts demanding pieces of you. It's a sacred, quiet time where nobody wants anything from you. I always want people to imagine their personal energy is like a smartphone battery.
That's a very relatable image.
We all know that feeling of plugging our phone in, right? If you wake up to a blaring alarm, immediately jumping out of bed because you are already running late, heart pounding, rushing to get dressed and get out the door.
It is awful.
It is like unplugging your phone when it is only at 10% battery. You are starting your day in the red zone.
You are already depleted.
Exactly. And you are asking a nearly empty battery to run a dozen demanding apps all day long. Waking up early in the quiet gives you the uninterrupted time to fully charge your soul to 100%. Before you ever have to step out into the demanding world.
That is exactly how the internal battery works. And the impact of that full charge is something I see constantly in my practice. When people carve out that morning time, they experience a profound shift in their emotional weather.
Their emotional weather, I like that.
It's as if a dense fog lifts from their minds. The early morning light, the stillness, the lack of external demands. It acts as a natural balm for anxiety.
Let's ground this a bit. What does that look like in practice for someone who usually rushes out the door with half a cup of cold coffee?
Well, it looks like having the time to actually sit down and eat a nourishing breakfast instead of grabbing something processed on the run.
Right.
It means having 10 minutes to stretch your body, to breathe deeply, and to set a calm, deliberate intention for the day. The mechanism here is about shifting from a defensive posture to an offensive one.
Defensive to offensive. Explain that.
When you rush, you spend your entire day simply reacting to a series of emergencies. You are defensive. When you take the morning for yourself, you move through your day with agency.
You are acting on the world.
Yes. You are the author of the day, not the victim of it.
I can completely see the value in that. But I know the immediate pushback we are getting right now from listeners.
I bet I know what it is too.
They're saying, that sounds lovely, but I am naturally wired for the night. I am a night owl. I do my best thinking at midnight, and I physically cannot wake up early.
I completely validate that feeling because the physical resistance to waking up feels very real. But what I often explore with my clients is that staying up late is frequently not a biological destiny, but a symptom of a much deeper emotional need.
Yeah.
We refer to it as revenge-free time.
Yes. Revenge, bedtime procrastination. It's a concept so many of us relate to, but the emotional math behind it is just fascinating. Why do we punish our tomorrow selves to get revenge today?
Because of the feeling of being robbed of autonomy. Think about it. When your entire day felt chaotic, when you gave every ounce of your energy to your boss, your children, your chores, and your obligations.
You reach the end of the day feeling entirely depleted and used.
You didn't get a single second for yourself. So to get revenge on the day, to reclaim some sense of control, you refuse to go to sleep.
You stay up late watching television or scrolling on your phone.
Desperately trying to claw back some time that belongs only to you. You are essentially saying to the world, you controlled my whole day, but you cannot control my night.
It's an act of rebellion against our own lives. But the tragic irony is that by staying up scrolling until 2 a.m, we are just stealing from our own future energy.
We are.
We are ensuring that tomorrow will be just as chaotic and exhausting because we will wake up with that 10% battery again.
Precisely. You are stuck in a loop of exhaustion. So the practical life wisdom here is not to force a brutal, sudden change, because as we discussed earlier, the mind will panic and rebel.
Right, don't jump straight into the forest.
Exactly. Do not set your alarm for 5 a.m. tomorrow if you normally wake up at 8. That is an act of violence against your routine.
So what's the gentle step?
Just adjust your evening by 15 minutes, dim the lights 15 minutes earlier, put the screens away, read a book instead of watching a screen.
Gently coax your body into an earlier rhythm over the course of weeks.
You are trading that exhausted, screen-lit revenge time at midnight, which isn't really high-quality time anyway, for pure, restorative, quiet time at dawn.
I hear that, but when my alarm goes off at 6 a.m, my brain is incredibly good at convincing me that staying in bed is the ultimate form of self-care.
Oh, of course it is.
It whispers, "You are so tired, you worked so hard yesterday, just sleep. Sleep is self-love."
How do we fight our own logic in that vulnerable moment when we are only half awake?
That is the ultimate internal tug of war. The way you win that moment is by changing your definition of the morning. How is the morning routine usually sold to us?
Usually as a productivity hack.
Exactly. It is sold as a productivity hack. We think we are waking up early just to do more laundry, answer more emails, get a head start on our spreadsheets.
To be better, more efficient cogs in the machine.
Right. And if that is what you are waking up for, of course your brain wants to stay in bed.
Yeah, if the reward for waking up early is just more work, sleep will win every single time.
Exactly. This isn't about working harder. It is about creating a protective buffer of peace. You fight the urge to stay in bed by remembering that the morning is exclusively for you. It's about taking the time to read a beautiful, inspiring book.
It's about sitting by the window with a warm drink and just watching the light change instead of doom scrolling through negative news. It is an act of deep self-love.
Claiming the first fruits of your day for your own soul before you give the rest away to the world.
Beautifully said. When you realize the morning is a gift you give yourself, not a chore you endure, getting out of bed becomes a totally different experience.
Claiming the first fruits. I really love how that frames it. So, assuming we navigate that transition, we adjust our evenings, we bypass the threat response, and we carve out this quiet, sacred morning space, what do we actually fill it with?
Well, the temptation again is to write a massive list of goals.
Yeah, we think we need a massive, exhausting life overhaul. We think we need to reinvent ourselves before breakfast.
And that brings us right back to the illusion of the grand leap. You do not need an overhaul, you just need to focus on tiny, almost invisible changes.
This is where we talk about the secret of tiny drops, right?
Yes.
And the immense hidden power of 1% growth. I feel like we are constantly battling this cultural myth of overnight transformation. Every movie has a training montage where the hero goes from absolute zero to world champion in 3 minutes of upbeat music.
It's very cinematic, but very damaging.
It is. Every advertisement promises that if we buy this one supplement or this one planner, our lives will change overnight. And when it doesn't happen for us in real life, when we work hard for a week and see absolutely no results, we feel like absolute failures.
We think there's something fundamentally broken inside of us.
Right.
It is a very cruel, very pervasive illusion. Real, lasting, profound change is almost entirely invisible from day to day. Think about how a plant grows.
Okay, a plant.
You cannot see a plant growing if you pull up a chair, sit down, and stare at it. The movement is imperceptible to the human eye. But if you walk away and come back a month later, it is transformed.
Human growth is exactly the same, isn't it?
It is. If you just try to be a tiny fraction better, just 1% better than you were yesterday, you won't notice it tomorrow. Your friends won't notice it next week. But those tiny drops of effort, accumulating day after day, eventually fill an entire ocean.
It reminds me of the fatal flaw in how we think about motivation. We all wait for motivation to strike before we start.
Oh yes, the waiting game.
We say, I'll start reading when I feel inspired, or I'll start exercising when I feel energetic. But motivation is exactly like a sparkler on a dark night.
The sparkler, I like that.
You light it and it burns incredibly bright. It's beautiful, it's exciting, it illuminates everything around you. You feel like you can conquer the world.
But it fades in seconds.
Exactly, it burns out and suddenly you are standing in the dark again holding a cold piece of wire, wondering where all the energy went. Motivation is a sparkler. It cannot keep you warm through the winter.
That is a perfect analogy for the mechanism of motivation. Motivation relies on an emotional spike, and human emotions are inherently volatile and unsustainable. You simply cannot build a life on emotional spikes.
So if motivation is the sparkler,
Motivation is the sparkler, but discipline is the steady burning log in the fireplace. Discipline doesn't rely on how you feel, it relies on pre-made decisions.
but, the word discipline has such a terrible reputation. When people hear it, they think of a harsh punishment, like a strict teacher slapping their knuckles with a ruler. It feels restrictive.
It does, because we confuse discipline with punishment. But discipline, truly understood, is the ultimate form of self-love.
Self-love.
Yes, it is simply keeping a gentle promise to yourself, even on the days you feel heavy and unmotivated. It is looking at yourself and saying, I love myself enough to do this tiny good thing for my future, even though my present self would rather stay on the couch and watch TV.
It removes the emotional friction of having to decide every single day whether or not you feel like doing something. You just do it because it is a promise you made.
Precisely.
What does that look like practically, though? What are the microactions that actually shape the future without triggering that overwhelm?
Practical life wisdom tells us to look at what the majority of people refuse to do and simply do the opposite in very small doses.
Okay, give me an example.
The majority comes home exhausted and watches 3 episodes of a television show to numb out. Swap out just one of those episodes for a lecture or an audio track that inspires you.
Just one.
Yes, the majority hasn't read a book since school. Commit to reading just 5 pages of a book before you sleep. The majority sits hunched over a desk all day, never moving. Do a simple 10-minute stretch on your living room rug.
These aren't massive mountains to climb.
Not at all. They're just small pebbles to pick up.
I know you have seen the compounding effect of this in your practice. Can you walk us through what that actually looks like for a real person?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of an anonymous story from my coaching practice that illustrates this perfectly. I had a client who came to me feeling entirely overwhelmed by life. They were in that deep, muddy swamp we talked about.
Right, feeling totally stuck.
They felt like they were drowning in family responsibilities, carrying deep sadness about their career, and they firmly believed they had 0 control over their destiny.
That's a heavy place to be.
It is. The very idea of changing their life made them physically weep from exhaustion. They didn't have the energy for a sparkler, let alone a fire.
So where do you even begin when someone is at that level of depletion?
We agreed to drop all big goals entirely. No diet, no exercise plan, no career changes. We committed to one single 5-minute daily habit.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes of sitting quietly with a notebook every morning, writing down one thing they felt grateful for and one small intention for the day. That was it.
Did it feel too small to them? I imagine there's a temptation to think writing in a notebook isn't going to fix my career or my marriage.
At first, yes, they were skeptical. But because it was so small, because it only took 5 minutes, they couldn't find a valid excuse not to do it. Even on their darkest, most exhausted days, they could find 5 minutes.
And what happened?
Well, here is how the mechanics of the 1% growth kicked in. After a few weeks, that tiny drop created a ripple. Sitting quietly for 5 minutes every morning started making them feel just a tiny bit more grounded.
A tiny bit more grounded.
And that grounded feeling reduced their morning anxiety, which unexpectedly gave them a slight surplus of energy in the afternoon. With that tiny bit of extra energy, they decided, entirely on their own, to add a 10-minute walk after work.
Oh, wow. The compounding effect begins.
Exactly. The walk helped clear their head, which naturally improved their sleep quality. Better sleep meant they woke up with a 40% battery instead of a 10% battery.
Which changes everything.
It does. That improved their mood, which changed the way they interacted with their partner and their colleagues at work. Within a year, their entire reality had transformed. Their relationship had improved, they had pursued a promotion, and they felt vibrant.
That is incredible.
And all of it, every single change stemmed from that single, non-negotiable 5-minute promise they kept to themselves when they were at their lowest point.
It really highlights the principle that you don't need to see the final destination to take the first step. It makes me think of the analogy of steering a massive ship across the ocean.
Oh, the ship analogy, yes.
If the captain turns the wheel just 1 single degree, the passengers won't even feel it. If you stand on the deck and look out at the water, it feels like you are still going exactly straight.
Nothing has visibly changed in your environment.
Right. But because of the immense distance of the ocean, because of the compounding effect of time, a few days later, that 1 degree shift means you will find yourself in an entirely different, incredibly beautiful part of the world rather than crashing into the rocks.
A 1-degree turn. That is all it takes to avoid the rocks. But, to keep making those tiny 1-degree turns, especially when the weather gets rough, when it rains, and when the waves are crashing against the side of the ship.
You have to truly believe you are the captain.
Yes. You have to believe you belong at the wheel. And this brings us to a crucial pivot in our conversation. You can set your alarm and you can pick up your notebook. But to sustain this over a lifetime, we must change how we speak to ourselves.
We have to understand the magic of identity and belief.
Exactly.
This is the transition from doing to being, right? Because we spend so much time focusing on what actions to take, but we rarely focus on who is taking them.
It is perhaps the deepest life observation I can offer. Most people fail to change their lives because they only try to change their surface actions, while deep down in their core, they still firmly believe they're exactly the same flawed, stuck, lazy person they've always been.
They try to staple shiny new habits onto an old, tired identity.
And the friction between those two things eventually tears the habit apart.
Walk me through the emotional friction of that. What does that sound like in our heads when we try to staple a new habit to an old identity? Let's say you decide to start running. If you tell yourself, I'm a lazy person, but I'm going to try to force myself to exercise today, Every single step of that run will feel like a brutal fight against your own nature.
Because your brain is constantly seeking alignment.
Yes, your brain will say, wait, what are we doing out here? We're lazy. Lazy people don't run. Let's go sit down. You are fighting your own self-image.
But if you gently change the core belief,
If you tell yourself, I am a healthy person who honors my body, taking a walk is no longer a chore you have to force. It becomes a natural expression of who you already are. Healthy people walk, so you walk. There is no internal debate.
adopting a new identity is tricky, though. It feels a bit like acting at first. I always think of it like putting on a heavy winter coat that belongs to someone else.
I like where this is going.
Imagine someone hands you a beautifully tailored, heavy wool coat. You slide your arms in, but the shoulders are too wide, the material is stiff, it hangs weirdly on your frame, and it smells like a stranger.
It feels strange and entirely fake.
You walk around feeling like an imposter in this giant coat, waiting for someone to point out that it isn't yours. But if you just keep wearing it out into the cold, day after day, something shifts.
The fabric softens.
Exactly. It bends where your elbows bend. It molds to the shape of your shoulders. It takes on your scent. And eventually, after wearing it through enough storms, it becomes unmistakably yours. You don't even think about it when you put it on. It is your coat.
That is a phenomenal way to explain the mechanism of identity. You wear the new coat of, I am a reader, or I am a calm parent, or I am someone who finishes what they start.
At first, of course, it feels like a costume.
Your brain knows you haven't read a book in a year. But identity isn't fixed. It is built on evidence. Every time you make a positive choice, no matter how small, you are casting a tiny vote for the new person you are becoming.
You read one single page. You just cast a vote for being a reader.
You drink a glass of water instead of soda. You cast a vote for being a healthy person. When the votes mount up over weeks and months, the evidence becomes undeniable. Your brain accepts the new reality. The coat fits.
But the opposite is also entirely true, isn't it? Every time we engage in negative self-talk, we are casting votes for the swamp.
The words we whisper to ourselves in the quiet moments are incredibly powerful. When we constantly call ourselves messy or failures or stuck or too damaged to change, we are casting heavy votes for that identity.
We create a dark prophecy that our own minds then try to fulfill.
If you tell yourself you are a failure, your brain says, oh, we are a failure, understood. Let me sabotage this new opportunity. Let me sleep through this alarm so our reality matches our label.
We have to firmly catch those negative words as they form in our mouths and replace them with statements of who we are becoming.
We must.
I want to push back on this a little, though, because this is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of us. The coat metaphor is great, but what happens when we stumble?
It happens to everyone.
What happens when we have a terrible week? We skip our morning routine for 3 days in a row, we eat the entire box of cookies, or we lose our temper with our kids. The old negative voice immediately rushes back in with a vengeance and says, see, I told you, you are a fake, you haven't changed at all, the coat doesn't fit, take it off.
Yes, that voice can be very loud.
How do we handle the stumble without letting it destroy the new identity?
I want to offer deep comfort here to anyone listening who feels they have ruined their progress because of a bad day or a bad week. A single stumble does not define you, and it does not erase your votes.
It doesn't.
Think about the mechanics of identity this way. A genuinely healthy person occasionally eats a poor meal. A dedicated lifelong reader occasionally skips a week of reading because life gets overwhelming. A deeply loving partner occasionally loses their patience after a hard day at work.
So an exception does not rewrite the rule.
Exactly. What defines your identity is not unbroken perfection. It is the overall trajectory and direction of your life. When you stumble, you don't burn the ship and jump into the water. You just gently correct the wheel 1 degree back to the right path.
Direction over perfection. That is so relieving to hear. It takes the pressure off having to perform our new identity flawlessly every single day.
It should be a relief, yes.
But let's go a layer deeper, because sometimes it isn't just a simple stumble. Sometimes the path gets incredibly dark. What happens when the stumble turns into a fall and we can't seem to get back up? How do we find our way back when we feel entirely paralyzed by life's hardships?
This is perhaps the most vital and tender thing we will talk about tonight, because life can be terribly, inexplicably hard.
It really can.
There are seasons when life just keeps knocking us down wave after wave. It could be loss, grief, severe financial stress, or the breakdown of a foundational relationship. And when that happens repeatedly, a very specific, heavy, dark fatigue sets in.
Emotionally, we start to believe that absolutely nothing we do matters.
We feel like passengers in a vehicle with no steering wheel, hurtling toward a cliff. We start to believe we have zero control over our pain, so we stop trying to navigate. We simply surrender to the swamp because fighting feels completely useless.
It is a heartbreaking state to be in. So many of us have been there. It makes me think of a bird that has somehow gotten trapped inside a house.
Oh, yes.
It sees the trees and the sky outside, so it flies toward the light, but it hits the glass window hard. It shakes it off, flies again, and hits the glass again.
Again.
After bumping into that invisible barrier so many times, experiencing that repeated pain and failure, the bird just gives up. It sits on the windowsill, looking out at the sky, completely forgetting that it has wings. It just accepts the window as the end of its world because trying to fly only brings pain.
Yes. The bird believes its wings are useless. It has learned to be helpless. To break that paralysis, to remind the bird that it can still fly, we have to use very specific, very grounded life wisdom.
What do we do?
When everything in the entire world feels completely out of control, when the news is terrifying, when your personal life is a storm, when your heart is broken, you must shrink your world down. Shrink it down to only what you can touch with your own two hands in this exact moment.
Shrink the world. Walk me through the mechanics of that. What does that mean practically for someone who is sitting in their room right now feeling completely overwhelmed by their life?
It means you set the smallest, most absurdly simple goals imaginable. When you are in that dark fatigue, telling yourself to focus on your career or make a 5-year plan is impossible. It will only make you feel worse.
Right, it's just more pressure.
So your goal is just to make your bed. Wash one single coffee cup and put it on the drying rack. Send one text message with a heart emoji to a friend. Water one houseplant.
Just tiny, tiny things.
Yes, but listen to me very carefully. In this state, these are not chores. These acts are profound evidence that you still have a voice and you still have power.
When you wash that cup, you are proving to your brain that your actions can still alter your environment.
Exactly. You are reminding the bird that it has wings, even if it's just fluttering them for a second.
I love how you frame that. They are evidence of power. By making the bed, you brought order to one tiny 6x6 foot square of a chaotic universe. You proved you can still shape reality.
Exactly. You are rebuilding your sense of agency from the ground up. And this is where the anchor of routine becomes a literal lifeline in a storm.
A lifeline.
When the world outside is chaotic, frightening, and entirely unpredictable, a predictable daily routine provides a deep sense of psychological safety for your nervous system.
Knowing that you will wake up, put the kettle on, stretch for 2 minutes, and sit in the exact same chair to drink your tea.
It tells your mind, we are safe here. We know exactly what happens next. It provides a solid, unshakable floor beneath your feet when everything else in your life feels like it's trembling.
But how do we balance this? I struggle with this tension. How do we balance accepting our current pain and our very real exhaustion with that gentle push to keep moving forward?
It feels like walking a tightrope, doesn't it?
It does. If we push too hard, we are being cruel to ourselves when we are already down. But if we are too lenient, we just stay in the swamp forever. How do we navigate that?
It is a delicate balance, and it requires profound self-compassion. But we have to understand what self-compassion actually is. It is not just endless coddling.
Okay, what is it then?
True self-compassion is like being a deeply loving, wise parent to yourself. It means holding space for your tears. It means acknowledging your tiredness without an ounce of judgment. You sit with yourself and you say, I am so sorry you are hurting right now. It makes complete sense that you are this tired. Anyone would be.
Validating the pain.
Yes. But a loving parent also knows that letting a child stay in bed in a dark room for a month won't heal them. So self-compassion also means loving yourself far too much to let yourself rot in the swamp.
You hold your own hand.
And you say, I know you are exhausted, but let's take just one step together. Just one. Let's open the curtains.
Let's open the curtains. It's fiercely protective, but it demands just a little bit of life from us. It honors the pain while refusing to let the pain be the end of the story.
We have to protect our inner light, especially when the wind is blowing hard and it starts to flicker. We have to cup our hands around it.
I think that is exactly what this entire conversation has been about, cupping our hands around that light.
Absolutely.
Let's just sit for a moment and gather up all these pieces we've unpacked tonight. We started by looking honestly at the warm, muddy swamp of the comfort zone. We explored why it feels so safe to blend into the gray mass and how the fear of standing out keeps us running on a treadmill.
draining our energy through hiding rather than resting.
And we talked about reclaiming our energy by stepping out of the revenge bedtime cycle, understanding the emotional math of why we steal from our tomorrow selves, and choosing instead to charge our internal batteries in the quiet magic of the morning hour.
Claiming the first fruits of the day as an act of self-love, not as a productivity hack.
We dismantled the myth of overnight transformation and the fleeting sparkler of motivation. We talked about the warm, steady fire of discipline and how 1% growth, just making a 1-degree turn of the ship, can completely change the destination of our lives over time.
We explored the heavy winter coat of a new identity, moving from just doing things to being the person who does them, learning to catch our negative self-talk before it casts a vote for the swamp, and understanding that a stumble does not define our overall direction.
And finally, we talked about what to do when we fall hard. When we feel like that bird hitting the window, paralyzed by life's storms. We learn to shrink our world down, to wash one cup, to make one bed, and to use those tiny actions as proof that we still have the power to shape our reality.
To be a loving parent to ourselves.
Yeah.
Honoring our exhaustion, but loving ourselves too much to stay in the dark.
It is a lifelong, soulful journey. And the beauty of it is that it happens quietly in the background of our daily lives.
It doesn't require an audience, and it doesn't require perfection. It just requires a willingness to try.
I want to remind you, the person listening to us right now, resting your hands on that mug, you are never alone in your struggles. The exhaustion you feel is incredibly human. The fear you feel when you think about changing is human.
But it is never ever too late to redefine who you are. The beautiful, redeeming thing about life is that every single morning the sun comes up, the slate is wiped clean, and you get a brand new opportunity to be just 1% better. Today is a perfect day to start.
As we sit here in the quiet, as the night deepens and you prepare to rest, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over as you close your eyes. Ask yourself this. What is one tiny, beautiful thing you can do for yourself tomorrow morning that the old you would have been too tired to even try?
Just one thing. Let that question sit with you.
If this conversation brought you a moment of peace tonight, or if it sparked a small, warm fire in your heart, we would love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what your one tiny thing will be. We read every single one, and we are so genuinely glad you pulled up a chair and spent this time with us today. May you have a deeply peaceful, restful, and comforting night's sleep.